Now, yesterday, some of the speakers underlined the need to problematize what are we talking about and to take distance from the notion of European refugee crisis, and I fully agree with that. I think that what we've witnessed is a way of doing policy. It's a crisis-led way of management, of taking decisions which calls for rapid, speedy actions and preventing proper scrutiny and democratic debate about their proportionality, their necessity, and their compliance with fundamental rights. Instead, Brussels seems to be driven nowadays by fears, by paranoia and insecurity as the rationale behind most of the policies which have been adopted. There is an obsession also with expulsion. We need to expel those people. We need to return those people. And it is here where cooperation with Turkey needs to be understood. Third country cooperation, in particular with Turkey, has been framed as one of the key solutions to what has happened. And the European Commission, in particular, has been calling or has presented this cooperation with Turkey as a way to increase the effectiveness of return policy and increase enforced removals of those people. And the question that I pose in this presentation is, of course, is this really in compliance with founding rule of law and fundamental rights principles of the EU? I mean, this is a rhetoric question, of course. Now, if you look at EU-Turkey, it was already at the end of 2015 that the EU adopted a joint action plan where critically clear established the need to so-called fight against irregular migration. It identified as a priority to smoothly readmit irregular migrants to Turkey and called Greece to use bilateral readmission agreement with Turkey to send those people back. This priority got shaped more concretely into the much controversial EU-Turkey statement of March this year, actually, 2016, where it was also clearly stated the need for all new irregular migrants entering through Turkey to be returned. And anyone found in Turkish sea waters will also be taken back to the Turkish territory. Readmission has been therefore framed as the solution to the phenomenon of the crisis that we have seen. And you may wonder, what is this readmission? Well, readmission, in short, is basically an act, or has been defined by the Commission, as an act by a state accepting the re-entry of an individual who has been found irregularly entering or being present in an EU member state. And this includes three categories of people: own nationals of that state, in this case Turkey; third country nationals, anyone entering EU's territory irregularly to the Schengen area. And a readmission agreement is an international agreement between the EU and a third country, and it provides, very simply put, procedures facilitating that return, the identification of the persons and the sending back of those persons. Now, until now, there are about 17 readmission agreements being concluded during the last 16 years, and as Balsamis was mentioning, those agreements are a key component of the so-called external dimensions of EU migration policy. There was a lot of debate about the EU-Turkey readmission agreement, and the fact is that this agreement was already into force since 2014. At the end of 2015, what was discussed was actually to end up a transitional period. There was a transitional arrangement according to which third country nationals entering through Turkey into countries like Greece irregularly wouldn't be covered until 3 years later the entry into force, meaning 2017. In the discussions during the crisis, what was agreed was to advance that entry into force to June this year, 1st of June this year. So this is what changed or actually accelerated the implementation of the agreement to 1st of June. What is interesting is that if you look at the Commission's second report on the progress implementing the EU-Turkey statement, which was published on the 15th of June, is that actually for that change to be effective, the need was for the Turkish parliament to give a green light. And this happened. The Turkish parliament has given a green light to that. However, the Turkish Council of Ministers also needed to give a green light, and this has not yet happened. Media has reported that actually the Turkish authorities are using this as a leverage. When dealing with the EU, you know that another promise by the EU was visa liberalization, and this has proved to be especially controversial and has not happened yet, of course. So Turkey is using this as part of the negotiations and diplomatic relations with Brussels, which means that the application of the EU-Turkey readmission agreement to third country nationals has not yet materialized. If we look at the numbers, well, it is very shocking to see that the number of entries has decreased exponentially since the EU-Turkey statement in March, particularly as from April. The numbers have passed from 5,000 a day to 50 people entering daily. I was speaking with the person coordinating the European Asylum Support Office activities in Greece, and he was frankly telling me this is now no longer a crisis in terms of numbers. And this was recognized by the Commission, and the Commission presents this as a success. When looking at the numbers, saying, look, now we have 47 people entering, therefore this is really successful. And no, this includes people arriving in Greece to the islands on a daily basis. Yes, which doesn't mean, and I would like to offer you now some specific statistics we received from Frontex, proving that when we talk about irregular entries, and this is perhaps one of my main points, it is perhaps a misleading category, because this doesn't mean that those people are asylum seekers. They are, in fact, most of them, looking at Eurostat statistics and UNHCR, a majority of them are from countries understood to be countries of source or refugees. But Frontex counts those numbers as irregular entries, and you see the dramatic decrease in the so-called joint operation Poseidon, which is the one in Greece, in the Greek-Turkey border. You see in April really a decrease from 27,000 irregular entries to 3,500, and in May 1,600. So we are seeing indeed a very substantial decrease in the number of entries, and one wonders what is happening in Turkey. What is really happening in Turkey? And can we really measure success purely from a numerical exercise? And this is my critique that I would like to expose to you. At what costs? At what costs can we see these numbers decreasing? Well, there are a number of challenges in this readmission policy, in particular when it comes to Turkey. A first challenge is interstate relations. These are international agreements, as I mentioned, and they are highly dependent on diplomatic relations, on the state of diplomatic relations with the country concerned. I just mentioned that Turkey is actually now using this as a leverage to get something else, and actually it's not working in practice. Furthermore, countries like Turkey, they are not interested in concluding these kind of agreements with the EU. This is seen to be as an EU-centric securitarian interest to send people back. What's the interest of those countries to engage in this kind of cooperation? Domestically, it's hugely unpopular, because this means that the country concerned is agreeing with the EU to negotiate, sending back their own nationals, as if those people were criminals. And also, there is indeed not much that the EU can offer to those countries, really. I mean, you can see in the case of Turkey, the visa liberalization. Is this really going to happen? Can the EU really deliver visa liberalization to Turkey?